Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of art, it's the Tenet podcast. I'm Todd Pearson, coming to you from the 40 West Arts District in Lakewood, Colorado, and joining me from his art abode in Rapid City, South Dakota, the notorious WDB, aka quite possibly the most interesting man in the world, the one and only Wes Brown.
Todd, how you doing, my friend? Oh my God, we're back at it again for the second time.
Yeah, we had a false start. Right?
We did. I think I heard the gun go off. We had to go restart in the blocks, and we're at it again.
Yeah, I had the adrenaline going, and then all of a sudden it just dissipated because I got busy. So I take full responsibility for that. I was the one that kind of got us into that point, the last couple of months, and then I got you all excited, and then we did an episode, and then boom, it just dropped off again. But we are back.
We're back. We got to be careful because I start watching TV and the next thing I know, I'm sucked into some program that I haven't seen in 20 years. So.
Really?
Yeah. I've been watching Rules of Engagement. Funny as hell. Oh my God. It's so funny. You couldn't play that shit today. It's so funny. So anyway.
That guy that plays the main character is pretty funny.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I can't ever remember his name. Patrick something, I think.
Yeah. Yeah,
he's hilarious.
A hoot. Oh my God, that show is just, and half that shit would not play. Somebody would get their feelings hurt. They'd have to cancel it.
That's with a lot of sitcoms, and we're just talking like 10 years ago. So
2.5 Men, another one. 2.5 Men, you can't play that shit today.
Oh man.
Anyway, I'm glad to be back on the podcast with you, my friend. Oh my God, I miss talking to you.
Yep.
So it's good to be back.
It's good to see your face
again.
And you look marvelous again.
Thank you.
Not quite as spiffy as you did yesterday when I saw your face, but still pretty good. You're still rocking the good hair.
Thank you.
Which I'm jealous of.
All right. I won't comment any further on that.
Okay. All right. We can just let that one lie. Hey, let's get into it tonight. We're not gonna ramble too far, but I have a little thing that I want to talk about that I promised. There's a new gallery in Lakewood United Methodist Church. They're having a Christmas art market happening in their Genesis Gallery here in Lakewood, located at 1390 Brentwood Street. It's the newest gallery in the 40 West Arts District, and this event takes place Friday, December 8th from 4 to 8 p.m. and Saturday, December 9th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. I think they have between 16 and 20 artists that will be selling various pieces of art and things that they've made. And so if you're looking to support local artists this Christmas and get some Christmas shopping done, then come on out and check it out. And there's also a phenomenal show in the gallery, Genesis Gallery. The current show is Dreams, Wishes, and Hope, featuring the work of Larissa Medina and Damaris M. Santos. And these two young ladies are up and coming artists and do phenomenal work. And it's really cool to see them in that gallery. They're part of CHOC, Chicano Humanities Art Council. And I personally know both of them. So come on out and check out their work. They sold a bunch of pieces during First Friday, which I was really happy to see that the community came out and supported them. So anyway, we're going to talk about something completely different than that. We talked with our next guest back in April of this year, along with his partner, Emily O'Deal, as they were preparing to wow audience with their presentation of Goodnight Moon in Trinidad, Colorado. And today we welcome Ken Chapin back to the program to talk about his latest endeavor, heading up the Smithsonian Exhibition, Crossroads, Change in Rural America, along with multiple companion events that will be taking place throughout the month of December into January of next year. Ken, welcome back.
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. So happy to see you both.
It's great to see you, Ken. My God, it's been a while. I know you got to spend some time with Todd these past couple of weeks, but man, it's good to see you. And give my regards to Emily when you get a chance.
I will. Hey, the guys say hi.
I love it.
We live in a tiny home, so
yes.
So you can actually see her from where you're sitting.
Almost.
Okay.
If I recall, last time somebody was sitting in the car.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah. The things we do for love.
That's right. That's right. That's
Yeah,
good.
that was a cold conversation, man. I'm surprised that
Literally.
that you didn't hear the chattering of my teeth on your recording.
So
But
funny.
but we don't have to contend with that today.
Good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're warm and inside.
Yeah.
I felt bad
Yeah.
for you, dude. I really did when when you were doing that. But because you have this tiny home and you both were
Yeah.
on your phones, we couldn't
Yeah.
have you in the same space. So somebody had to draw the short straw and go outside.
Oh, we didn't even bother drawing straws. Can you imagine Emily sitting out in the cold like that? I wouldn't sleep at night. I mean, because I would feel badly, not because I was afraid.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, you're a gentleman through and through, and I know that. And
Yeah.
you two make a fantastic pair. So, Wes, this
Yes.
weekend when we were down in Trinidad for the opening of some of these events that we're going to talk about, these exhibitions, we were visited by Buddy the Elf and
Nice.
his companion Jolie. I think that's the name of the character in Elf. And Buddy was played by our good friend Ken here.
I seen pictures on Facebook. It was amazing.
Have you really? Oh my goodness. That was so much fun. Yeah, that was
awesome.
so much fun. Yeah. And like we have never been in costume. Like we're not costume people. If it weren't for, like fueling the fire of the Smithsonian project, I would not have done that. But it was a blast. I can see why people do it. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
You definitely can you could be at Will Ferrell's doppelganger
Is that
or
right?
vice versa.
Yeah, I've been saying the vice versa one, but I've gotten that over the years, but I've never, I never really put much stock in it. But I figured, why not leverage it and, you know, create some spark around this event? So it seemed to work. I think we took our photographs with more people that night. We were so busy getting our picture taken with people that I hardly had time to talk.
I believe it.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, we were
That's
trying to
awesome.
give away those tickets so we could give away these free prizes, and we just couldn't give away tickets and take pictures at the same time. It was a blast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
It was a fun night. And the event we're talking about is there was two exhibitions that opened in conjunction, two Smithsonian events in conjunction with the regular fair at the AR Mitchell. Cody Keel, our friend Cody Keel, had his gallery open to the public and a new show up curated by our friend Valerie Severy, Guardians of the Farolands. And then they had the regular Mitchell stuff up that you could go check out. And then Ken had curated a show called BRIM and also brought in the Corn Mother Project, which is something that I do. So, man, thank you so much for getting that and making that happening.
It's a real pleasure, and it was so easy. And I got to tell you, I had a lot of fun hanging that show with you.
Dude, I'd still be there hanging it if it wasn't for you. So I really appreciate you jumping in and making that happen.
Yeah, and with Karen's help, it was nice. It's fun to do side by side work like that.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that.
Yeah, shout out to Karen Rail. Is that how you pronounce her last name? Yeah, Karen Rail.
Yeah.
She sits on the board of the AR Mitchell and is a phenomenal artist herself. And she jumped in with Ken and got that show hung. So thank you. So we're talking about Smithsonian Crossroads, Change in Rural America. What is it? And what is it trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so there is a division of the Smithsonian called Museums on Main Street, and their function is to design exhibitions, Smithsonian quality, let's say, exhibitions that travel the country. And there are a number of them floating around the United States right now. This one that we're working on, as you mentioned, is Crossroads, Change in Rural America. And it looks at the way life in small rural frontier communities has changed over the last 100 years. And in the state of Colorado, there are 10 towns that are hosting this exhibit. Trinidad is the third. And what you do, the Core Zone to Trinidad Creative District is applied to host this exhibit, and they were selected. And as a result of that, you make some agreements, right? One is you have 800 square feet for the Smithsonian exhibit itself, which comes in 16 travel cases and comes with instructions, and you just put it together. In addition to that, because of another project that we're working on, we agreed to facilitate 3 conversations in the community, and then 3 interviews with some people. And then they encourage you to create what they call a companion exhibit to the Smithsonian's Crossroads exhibit, which is an opportunity for the host cities to explore how change is taking place in their community, the impact that might be having, and the exploration of change happens in these conversations. So, and it could also take place as a part of whatever your companion exhibit is as well. And you can choose any subject you want. We chose as our broad theme agriculture because there's a rich history of farmers and ranchers and cowboys and cattlemen across the Southwest, but Trinidad and Southern Colorado have their own version of that history. And agriculture itself touches the lives of so many people. And we're trying to create opportunities for engagement with the community at every turn. And so I decided that agriculture would be a good place to start. And after that, we just sort of followed wherever the story led us. That's where we went. So one of the themes that popped up was the importance of the railroad, and particularly around ag. So, there's that clear connection. But then the next thing is, what is the history of rail? How has that impacted this community? How does rail connect us to other communities, either up or down the line? And how has rail itself changed from 100 years ago until today? So those are sort of broadly the kinds of things that we started to explore. And then we just followed the energy. We reached out to about 60 rail organizations across the state of Colorado, all of the contiguous states as well, to look for stories that they may have about us that we may not tell ourselves. Because the stories that we're already telling each other, we've already heard. And so there might be other stories being told, historic stories from other rail organizations or communities about their interaction with Trinidad that we may not talk about, And as a result of that, all of that work kind of got scrapped. And the next thing you know, we're building a 500 plus square foot model railroad layout with 9 different trains. And I mean, the entire show just pivoted on its own just due to where the energy was leading us. We had some STEM components, and I was thinking, field trips, education. So we were like starting to build those things. And then the volunteers, the rail enthusiasts came out of the woodwork. And next thing you know, they're spending hundreds of hours building this rail layout. And so we just followed the energy. That's where the enthusiasm is. So hopefully taking that approach will translate to the community, because I think, upon reflection, it's Christmas time. I'm a little kid. What would I rather see? How does a locomotive work, or 9 trains at Christmas? Right. So I'm not going to fight that. So we just abandoned probably 90% of what was planned and went this completely different direction. And it's extraordinary.
So did the Smithsonian give any pushback when you change? I mean, maybe they don't care, but when you change pivot like that, sometimes that kind of throws a wrench into things. But
Well, the Smithsonian exhibit and everything else exist independently of one another.
gotcha.
We're free to do whatever it is that we want. And so I think by the time all is said and done, I think everybody's going to be thrilled with what we're doing because of the interest and the energy in the community. We're going to end up with, right now we've got 16 companion exhibits or events, and I'm looking at adding 2 more in January. So this thing is very alive. I mean, I have people coming up to me almost every day saying, "Oh, here's this thing that I know about that is historically significant. Can you put it in the show?" And I thought, I mean, I want to say yes to everybody, right? Because it's their show. Like, it's their story, it's their families, it's their history. It's all based on this community. Every single part of this Smithsonian companion events, except for Corn Mothers, is derived directly from the experience of the people who live here, either historically or currently. And the Corn Mothers, which I'm so thrilled that we were able to pull that off because it fits so perfectly with one of the narratives that we're exploring inside of the Smithsonian around our matriarchs and patriarchs. You know, these men and women throughout history and today that occupy that role in our community. Who do we look to for advice? Who might help run the town? You know, who are our teachers? Who do we go to? Who are the mentors? You know, who are the people that have done enough of their own work that we can go to them for guidance? And there are so many of them, and they show up in a lot of different ways in the community. Like, they occupy these different realms in the community. And so Corn Mothers fits perfectly with that. Because a Corn Mother, I think, is sort of akin to, or a version of, a matriarch, right? They're selfless. I mean, they're selfless. They're dedicated. They give so much, and people look to them as an example of a way of being in the world or in the community. And we wanted to highlight that because one of the things that's happening, I mean, it's happening all over the world, and it's happening in Colorado, and it's certainly happening in Trinidad and other small towns. But our population is aging, right? We have more, for the first time in recorded history this year, Colorado has more people over 60 than under 18. And you think about all the systems, everything that is built when the iceberg was flipped the other way, transportation, housing, healthcare, work, you name it, was designed with more younger people than older, and that's no longer the case. And so there are certain challenges that exist when that dynamic shifts. And one example is that there are a lot of older people that don't have youngers in their lives, right? And there are a lot of youngers that don't have olders for a whole bunch of reasons. But one thing that we know is that our lives are enriched when people across the spectrum of age are socially engaged with one another, right? And so if that's the case in our community, what can we do to close the gap between youngers and olders? And if there is anything, if there's any wisdom that there is to share, how do we do that in such a way that we're learning from the older people, the matriarchs and patriarchs, in real time? So one of our companion events is matriarch and another is patriarch. And we've got 4 men and 4 women on each panel, a slideshow of the matriarchs and patriarchs that are no longer with us. We've got, there's a woman, here's a first woman mayor in Trinidad. She's in her 90s. Our new mayor, a woman. So there's a lot of story in here and a lot of opportunity to both celebrate these people, but to go beyond the let's honor our elders thing. And how do we transfer that knowledge and that wisdom in real time, both for the learning, but another thing that we're experiencing is that our boards, our nonprofit boards, our municipal boards are filled with a lot of older people, and they're getting tired. And we don't have a lot of younger people because of demographics that are in a pipeline to fill those positions. So, as the Chinese proverb says, the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. One of the things that we're doing is we're planting seeds in the hearts and minds of the younger people who are watching maybe their grandparent, maybe their grandmother, their grandfather, an aunt, an uncle, maybe just somebody that they know in the community be celebrated and honored and respected in a really public way within the sort of auspices of the Smithsonian, so that when they do what people typically do in small towns, a good number of them, I was one of them, you get through school and you want to get as far away as you can, and then you either do or you don't come back. If you do come back, who are you going to be? How are you going to show up? How are you going to contribute to the community? And maybe, I won't be around for this probably, but just maybe we're planting the seed that when that young person boomerangs back, that they boomerang back and aspire to have the kind of impact on the community that their loved ones did. So who knows if it works, but that's the intent that we have. So every one of these events is feeding more than one bird with one seed, every single one of them. And the Smithsonian itself and all of these companion exhibits, I don't know if we've talked about the other work that I do relative to an aging population. We're taking the state's policy response to an aging population, and we're touching on every domain within that framework through the Smithsonian.
We touched on it the last time we interviewed you back in May, just to kind of give a little bit of a backstory of who you are and what you do. But talk about the work that you typically do and how it really intertwines with this.
Well, for, let's just say 10 or 12 years, I used to be an innovation consultant, a lot of design, work with organizations, leaders, teams. Sometimes you do team building, sometimes it's leadership development. And for about 10 years, I found myself suddenly in the aging space designing a postdoctoral research fellowship for graduate students out of India. I don't have an associate's degree. Like, you would think I would be the last person that anybody would ask to do that, but you can design it. Like, if you can design, you can design. And so I designed that and did that work, internationally and here in the United States. But at the same time, my parents were getting older, and I was actually living a very common narrative. I mean, both of you are experiencing your own version of this right now, where the impacts of an aging person that you love that's in your family has a direct impact on you. And I spent, I moved out of my work in India and away from designing for organizations into more of a coaching role, where I started working with people who were experiencing their own aging experience, right? It's either themselves or somebody else. And those two things, and I've always been an artist, or I've always been creative, let's say. And the working in the aging space, the one thing that was missing or was not being made explicit or explicit enough in lifelong Colorado was the role that art plays in an aging community. It's really easy to find the creative aging stuff, which, you get people together and they paint or, knit, or they do journaling, a creative act. And I think that that's all great work. And I think that there is a bigger role that art can play in the conversations that we have about what it means to either get older or what it means for the world to be aging. And I'm trying to really light some fire under that role that art can play. Right now we do, just like with Goodnight Moon. Goodnight Moon was really meant to be a lightning rod to draw attention to aging, specifically by choosing a book that's 75 years old, that's been read, to people for 75 years. So many, many people have either read or been read to. And starting with a story that people of many ages already appreciate, and then giving them a version of that is bigger and grander than anything that they likely have ever seen. Most people have never seen a version of Goodnight Moon like that, but it brought people together. They read together. We did a survey for our report, and there were a lot of people that read after going to Goodnight Moon. They read that story to people who were both younger and older than themselves. That is the very thing that we're trying to do, because we now have people who are interacting with people on both sides of their own age. It closes the gap between youngers and olders, and it fills it with something that people love. That's how my design work in the past has sort of turned into artwork today. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't want that opportunity to slip by, because I kind of want to give people context of the work that you've been doing.
Yeah.
And then how this intertwines with this Smithsonian and the companion exhibits that you're facilitating there in Trinidad.
Well, when we moved, so we were I think we talked about this in our last conversation, how we were on the road in our RV for a year. And when we came back in, when we were sort of forced in from the pandemic, we were looking around for places that we might land. And it may sound counterintuitive, but the fact that Huérfano and Los Animas counties are amongst the least healthy, are amongst the most economically challenged, looks like, from an innovator's perspective, that just looks like opportunity. A lot of people will run from that, right? But if you're looking to innovate, and I almost kind of don't like that word, but if you want to find a juicy challenge that a lot of people are steering clear of, which is opportunity in and of itself, because you have a real need and not enough people wanting to address it, it creates opportunity to do almost anything you want. It's how Goodnight Moon got where it was. And that is what led to, really, I would say that the success that we had with Goodnight Moon demonstrated to the creative district that we had the capacity to produce events of this nature. The size and scope of it is all my fault. They weren't asking, can you just lose your mind and go over the top with this? All they wanted was, can you do what's required? And which is what most people do. And one of the things that's happening, the answer is yes, I could do that. It wouldn't be much fun, but I could do it. One of the things that's happening, certainly in Trinidad, and I imagine it's happening in other small towns too, and probably up in the Denver metro area, is that in part because of our aging population, we have lost a couple of Trinidad's pride and joy events or organizations. Art Cartopia, gone. Blues Fest, gone. Some of the reasons for that, straight from the newspaper or from people that you might talk to who are in the know. Blues Fest, the people who run that are in their 70s, and there's no younger people who want to take it over. So what do you do with it? I mean, everybody loved that thing, but nobody stepped up to take it over. So it's gone. Cartopia, same thing. Couldn't had a hard time getting volunteers. People love that thing. There may be some apathy or some burnout in the volunteer corps that have led to that. And so having the Smithsonian brand in the palm of our hands we could be using this for a year, right? Seemed like a real opportunity, one, to leverage a brand that we get to borrow, right? And most people say yes to the Smithsonian. Like, I've only had one person that I've said, hey, I'm producing Smithsonian, blah, 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 blah. We're doing a train show. Would you like to, be a part of that? Only one organization said no. Everyone else has said yes. So one, we want to bring an event. We're trying to fill some of the space left by these other events and organizations that people really loved. And having the Smithsonian brand to sort of plug that hole for a second and then figure out what it is that we want to make of it. What I've been telling the people that I'm working with is that, I don't know, have you ever watched Shark Week? Or if you've ever seen a shark, that fish, the remora that sticks to the side of the shark?
Yep.
That's a mutually beneficial relationship. Unless, of course, the remora wants to eat too much of what's on the shark, then it gets a little irritating, right? Like anything, right? Too much of a good thing is not always a good thing. But that relationship is something that we're using as a model for the Smithsonian. The Smithsonian is a shark. Corn Mothers is a remora. BRIM is a remora. Steam, the rail show, a remora. Tractor Trek, they're all remora. They go places with the Smithsonian that they would never go on their own. And the idea is that rather than having the Smithsonian come fill a void and leave a vacuum in its wake, we wanted to create enough remora that they weighed at least as much as the shark, so that when the shark left, we still had a school of remora around. And each one of these remora is an experiment for something else that we might do. Let's take Steam, our rail exhibit. There are 60 rail organizations in the state of Colorado, and there are a lot of railroad museums in a lot of these places. And I've heard people say, "Oh, we need a railroad museum." I'm like, "Do we?" And I get the idea. I get the, but would you volunteer? Would you donate? Would you go more than once? Would you actually, would this be part of your steady cultural diet? Or do you just like the idea? And the only way, there may be more than one way to answer this question, but the way that we're doing it is, let's do a really cool pop-up rail show. And then let's take it away. And let's see what happens. Right? That's how we might know. Maybe the clamor of where did the train go might turn into the energy necessary to create something new. Crazy thing is, just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, the same day as the opening of Corn Mothers and BRIM and at the Mitch, somebody came forward who's in a position to do something about it and said, maybe we should create a railroad museum. And you want to know who they were talking to? The volunteer that came on board, who has put countless hours in putting these railroad layouts together for our steam show. Who knows? But that's an example of one of the things that we want to create. We were going to do a tractor parade. The idea of a tractor parade, every time I bring that up to somebody, they smile. I've been to one tractor parade and it was incredible, out in the middle of nowhere, Southern Ohio. And I was like, what? From lawnmowers to lawnmower tractor poles to old ones to new ones. And we thought, wow, our theme is agriculture, farmers, ranchers, cattlemen, cowboys. How do we celebrate them? Tractors, they're beautiful. They are essential. The shift from horses doing ag work to tractors doing ag work sent shockwaves through the ag community all across this country. So we wanted to do a tractor parade, and we just couldn't drum up enough interest in people who wanted to haul their tractors in. Or it's December 9th. It might be really cold. And so we sort of did a partial pivot, and we paired 13 photographers with 13 tractor owners from Huerfano, Los Animas, and Colfax counties. And I printed these photographs today. We paired these photographers with these tractor owners, and we just sent them, wherever you got to go to get in front of this tractor, you go, you do that, and you send me the images. They're incredible. I mean, some of these tractors are being held together by rust and held up by weeds. And one of these things just got fully restored. I haven't seen it yet. Fully restored. So they run the spectrum. Some have people in them, some don't. These photographs are 3 feet high by 4 feet wide. I mean, they're huge. And we just printed them today, and we're going to hang them all on Wednesday. And maybe that will help feed the fuel the fire for a tractor parade next year, but we'll see. So every one of these things is meant to be an experiment to see if it can be the seed that we're planting today that turns into a tree later.
So I got a question. So how did Trinidad get connected with Smithsonian? Did Smithsonian contact Trinidad, or Trinidad prepare a grant? How did that all come about?
Well, I don't know. My guess is I don't know for sure. I imagine that when this, here's probably what happened. Smithsonian partners with states' humanities organizations in different states. So for us, it's Colorado Humanities. They are in partnership. Colorado Humanities probably facilitated the outreach and the application and selection process for the state of Colorado. And then however it is that they selected the 10, I'm not sure. I inherited it. I mean, we'd already been awarded the Smithsonian and had it in our pocket for 6 months before I came on board. Okay. So I came on midstream because of Goodnight Moon. And they said, oh, you had over 700. How did you get 700 kids? Some of them making 120-mile round trips to come to Trinidad. How did the two of you make that thing and install it and produce it and promote it and fund it and do all that on your own? Can you turn some of that over here onto Smithsonian? And that's what we did.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah, and we've lost shows. There's 4 or 5 shows that we were going to do that fell by the wayside. Like we had a show lined up with the Freemasons. They were going to do an archival photography exhibit of imagery from goodness knows where they hid that stuff. I've never heard of a show like that ever. Have I heard of that?
That'd be amazing.
That would be amazing.
Yeah,
I would go that. I would drive back down to Trinidad to see that specifically.
Yeah, because there's some mystique to it. So yeah, it'd be a draw.
Yeah. So it wasn't supposed to happen now, but now we know this. Now we know those guys.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just walking down the street one day and I looked up and my grandfather was a Freemason of the highest level in Ohio. So I have a little bit of, I'm not going to say understanding, because that would sort of go against the whole point of the Freemasons if we understood them. But I was aware of it. And I saw the symbol, and I noticed, as we're out walking, Henry, oh, look, that was built by the Freemasons. Oh, look, my goodness, these guys built a lot of buildings down here. And there was some guy in front of the Freemason office building. And I was like, hey, do you know anything about these Freemasons? He goes, I am one. And that was just, so I think that that'll happen later. It clearly wasn't supposed to happen now, but I haven't let it go.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah.
So we're talking about how you were going to be leveling up and producing all these shows. This seems to me like a perfect fit for you, but also you really love engaging people. And it seems to me like kind of what you said before, that in doing all this, even if things kind of fall by the wayside, you feel like it's going to come back around, and it doesn't seem to be phasing you at all. You're just like, it'll happen in its own time. I know it'll probably happen. And you're undaunted by the various roadblocks that have been thrown up. You just skirt them and go around.
Yeah, I would mash a few things together. One thing that Bruce Lee said is be like water, right? So I probably won't be trying to do that sufficiently for the rest of my life, but I aspire to be like water. And the other thing, one of the guys that I was working with when I was in India, he said, this project is a train, and I am steering the direction of the train, and people are welcome to get on or off or back on or back off again, whatever they want. But the train is moving. I wasn't really comfortable with that. When I first heard it, it seemed a little arrogant to me. But now I see it as just being really clear and really open to the comings and goings and the uncertainty of things. I mean, those are things we can count on. Coming, going, and uncertain. And that, everything is happening exactly how it's supposed to be happening, because all evidence points in that direction, because that's what's happening. So how do you argue with what is? And nobody's jumping on or jumping off at me. Like, they're moving in and out for their own reasons, and I have no idea what they are, nor do I particularly have time to go find out. I just know that I'm happy to welcome people on or off. I was talking to somebody not too long ago. They're like, how do you keep all this stuff in your head? And I mean, I have a Google Doc. I have a bunch of Google Docs, but I don't know if you've ever heard this saying before, but the reason that you have a plan is so that you have something to deviate from. And deviation is another one of those things that's going to happen whether you like it or not. So most of the time, I am managing deviations. Hopefully gracefully, not always gracefully. I was so tired yesterday, I got grumpy. And the whole way home, I was grumpy. Then I woke up this morning after 6 hours of sleep. And I thought, wow. And I even went and checked with the guy, Jim, who's, building a lot of our train. I was like, man, I was grumpy yesterday. Could you tell? He goes, no. I was like, oh, good. At least it was just ringing around inside of me and not leaking out somehow. But I sure smelled it. Yeah, funny.
Did Emily pick up on it?
Oh yeah. Emily picks up on everything. Yeah, sometimes, I mean, this is one of the beauties of our relationship. Hopefully, in this is something that I think has the potential to be beautiful in anyone's relationships, is that we're a mirror for each other. I mean, we have these, we talked about these agreements that we, made explicit early on in our relationship, about us being in a relationship in order to grow, which is, that's a ride. But she knows what my intention is in life. And, if I step on her toes or somebody else's toes, it's not that I'm a toe stepper, it's inadvertent. And she's happy to reflect my attitude or my behavior or my words back to me directly. It's like the fastest way to get over my shit. It really is. There's no quicker way to take stock than to have somebody that you love or that loves you reflect back to you the sour, stinky, flat sides of behavior, and know that they're doing that in order to, she's doing that in order to help me be stronger, and vice versa. And as long as you know that, it doesn't sound like criticism. Now, yesterday, I was hearing things as criticism, but I was able to say, I'm hearing this as criticism, not you're criticizing me. I hope. I probably said a little bit of both. I probably said you're criticizing me, and then I got to that I hear this as criticism. But I don't think there was a huge gap. So, yeah, hopefully she feels this way, but about me. And I guess I'll know when we're done with this conversation because she's listening, that we're both indispensable to each other in that way, mutually indispensable to each other, and reflecting back the parts of ourselves we'd like to, buff out a little bit.
Yeah. It's important. And when I was down there, and before we got on, we did a little radio interview last week with Eli DeBono, and you were reflecting on this. That day, everything was hunky dory, and it was all sunshine. And you were telling us, how you were, laying with your partner and reflecting on how wonderful everything is in your life, and to have this love that you have for this person. And that's the flip side of it, right? What you just described, like you got to take the sunshine with the mud or the rain, or whatever you want to, whatever analogy you want to draw. But, I could appreciate that. And I thought that was really beautiful. Like you were in that moment of appreciation. And I asked you, we didn't have a lot of time to go down that path, but I said, is this because of the place in your life that you are right now? And you said, yeah, that's, probably wouldn't have happened 20 years ago, but this is where I'm at with this really special person that I have in my life that I love so much. Right.
She's incredible. I bet I don't need to tell you that. You guys have talked to her,
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and the other thing, and I'm not sure exactly what this relates to, but it popped up when you were just talking. Everything's true and partial, right? Everything is true and partial, even that statement, which I think these days is called a, meta, but everything is true and partial. To that day, it was mostly sunny that day, and not 100% sunny, but enough that it was sunnier than it wasn't. So in those moments, I am speaking to what is and what's true, which is it's sunny. It may just be 51% sunny, or it may just be 50% sunny, but it's never 49% sunny. And I'm never having to tell myself when it's less than 50% that it's actually more than 50. Like it's always more than 50%, which is always good. And I prefer to look at that than the part that is not sunny. I don't ignore it, but I don't fixate on it.
Right.
Which is a practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So much for talking about art.
No, but this all plays into it. This is art. It is. And you know what? In this process of you producing all these events and exhibitions, Emily is right in the mix with you as your partner, doing the work with you.
Yep.
And that's what you guys do. And this is something that you're building a legacy there in that town. And obviously you're in this position because of what you've done before, this incredible Goodnight Moon diorama that you guys made together. You both had your parts in it, and people recognize that, because I can't think, and I don't know enough about the community, but they thought enough of you that they were like, well, we need some guy that can, kind of head this up and make some stuff happen. And you were their guy. And I can tell you from speaking, and we talked about a little bit about this before we jumped on as well. They were two people that are part of the Creative Arts District there in Trinidad said that. They said, you're a force of nature, and we're so happy that Ken is, making all this stuff happen. Like, they totally respect and admire what you've accomplished in such a short amount of time, because you haven't had a ton of time to pull all this together, right?
No, I think 2.5, 3 months.
Yeah,
something like
that's
that.
crazy. And you have how many exhibitions or events are you yourself, with the help of Emily, are you responsible for to make happen?
Every one of them.
Which numbers? How many? How many?
Well, we opened Corn Mothers and BRIM simultaneously, so that was 2, and then on Saturday we opened 7 more.
So we touched on Corn Mothers. Talk about what BRIM is, so that our listeners, because the main thing of talking with you today is not only do I just love the community of Trinidad, but it's amazing what all you have going on there. And you are touching so many different topics in putting all this together. So I'd really like to hear what each one of these is about. And I want people to make the drive. If you don't live close to Trinidad, if you live in Denver, I want you to make the 3-hour drive down to Trinidad to check it out, because you're missing out if you're not experiencing it. Obviously, this is for that community there, but it goes much beyond that. Like, you want to draw people in from other places to come experience what you have going on in Trinidad, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've had a film screening. We've had 2 film screenings and the 2 exhibitions that opened up on December 1st. So we had Corn Mothers across the museum. From that was BRIM, the Solano story. So Solano's, if you don't know, Solano's is a saddle Western wear. Go get your boots fixed, get your hat shaped. This place is an institution. It's been around for 68 years. The same woman, Sandy Solano, who runs it now, her family started it. And we were down in Raton working on another element of this Smithsonian project, and we saw down the street the sign for Solano's, and one of our friends had posted on Facebook, a pair of boots that he had bought. We're like, oh, let's go check it out. We walked in there, and they have, since the 70s, been collecting hats from farmers, ranchers, cowboys, and cattlemen. It's where these hats go to retire. And they hang these hats up. I mean, they're everywhere. They're on the ceiling, a post, a wagon wheel, a rack up along. There's 398 of them. And these things, some of them have holes in them. They're all just like rode hard and put away wet hats. And they've started collecting the stories of the people who wore that hat. And at the point when we walked in there, after talking with Sandy Solano, I think they had 20 stories at the time, and they aspire to have a story for every one of those hats. But each one of those hats, like, we're exploring agriculture, right? And real people and real family ties and real life narratives. And it felt like the art gods just drop a zinger right in my hand. It is, I mean, these stories they're rich and they're connected. There's some families that like multiple generations or multiple people. You can look up there and go, oh, it's Everett Love. And oh, there's another Love. And oh, look, there's another Love over there. It's like going to a cemetery where you start to see, names of people who may or were clearly related. And so we talked to Sandy. It just fit perfectly with our exploration of agriculture and real people. And so, a few conversations later, we had to do some stuff because she made some commitments to the people who own these hats that she'd keep them safe. And so our challenge was, how do we keep them safer? Right. Because I don't want anything to happen to that hat while it's in my possession. If something happens while it's in her possession, while sad and unfortunate, not my responsibility. So the archaeology museum at Trinidad State College is being renovated. And so we inherited a bunch of display cases that used to have mountain scenes or stuff from the Clovis people. And we gutted them and reskinned them, but they had glass. So we were able to, and Emily, we worked on all of these things. Her hands are on just about every part of this project in one way or another. She did all the voice recordings for these BRIM stories because we got these 20 stories and we wanted to make them accessible. So Emily recorded all of them. She's got an acting background and she's really good at it. I would have to do this numerous times. I swear it's like she knows what she should sound like a sentence ahead of where she's at. It's like she has read this thing numerous times. And I think that's nature and training, but it's her voice that you hear on that. So you look at these hats and there's a quote from the story and there's a QR code so that you can go and listen to the whole story. We're doing the same thing for our tractor photo exhibit because we're interviewing the people who own these tractors, which is really, the tractor is really just an excuse to talk to people about their life and their family and their history in this region. And, what did it mean to grow up on a farm? And how old were you when you first got to drive this tractor by yourself? And, one guy was like, yeah, my dad really trusted me. I started driving that tractor when I was 8. And I'm like, 8? Like, these things are monstrous. And I'm like, why? He goes, he really trusted me. And I said, what is it like? What was it like then to know that, because his father's trust in him was explicit. Like, he knew. He didn't assume. They didn't dance around it. This kid knew. And I said, what was it like to be that young and to feel that? And he said it was one of the best feelings in the world. And I said, what, can you trace that into your life today? Like, what did feeling trusted so early on, how did that impact you as you grew into the man that you are today? And which is not, I mean, that's a pretty heavy question for, hey, I want to talk about your tractor. But he said, what, I've always had this belief that I could do anything that I put my mind to. And I'm like, you know what? That is worth the price of trust. Like, hey, everybody out there, if you're listening, if you trust your kid, let them know, because it could turn into something like, I'm confident to do anything I set my mind to. I mean, his dad didn't know that. You can't know what that seed's what kind of tree that's gonna turn into. And that guy's dad's not around any longer. That's the kind of stories I got to tell you, people, and I know that this is people everywhere, but maybe it's the small town thing. Maybe it's the nature of the stories. I'm not sure what it is, but my goodness, do people open themselves up? They share a part of themselves when gathered collectively, of course, look like this kind of community. Of course, this is the way you feel when you come here, because there's a bunch of that floating around. That's how I see it.
Yeah. I mean, everything has a story, and all these exhibitions that you're putting together, they all have a narrative around them. And I was looking at that BRIM exhibit, and I was, for one, the hats are just amazing. They're works of art, just looking at them, from the weathering to like, what is that? Like, what is that on the top of the hat? Like, how has that material changed from the weather after all those? I mean, it looks like crystallized sugar on the top of that guy's hat. What is that? Salt?
Sweat.
Sweat?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, you can definitely see the sweat stains, the sweat bands, right? But I mean, each one of those, I'm like, even before I even read the quote, I want to know who wore that hat. And the one in particular, and I got to mention this because you've told this story, and I want you to tell it on the podcast here. But there's a hat, and instead of a hat band, it's barbed wire.
Yeah. Who in their right mind would use barbed wire as a hat band? He basically asks himself that question. So he got this hat, but he didn't have enough money for a band. And so he used barbed wire, and he still does today. I don't remember if this particular guy is still alive or not, but his nickname was Old Barbed Wire. And in his story, he talks about, I don't recommend it. I have so many cuts from this. And I wonder why. Like, he knows that he's getting cut from this thing. So is this identity? I mean, it has to be, right? Who wears something that hurts, that they know that they recommend it, nobody else does it? Why do they persist?
And nobody's going to steal your hat.
Nobody's going to steal your hat. Some of these stories are written by the hat owner from their perspective. Some of them are written by loved ones, because the hat wearer is no longer with us. Some of these stories are written from the perspective of the hat themselves. And it's an interesting, there are these patterns that emerges, particularly, I mean, in all of them, but let's just focus on the stories written by the hat. There are patterns, there are themes that emerge in all of these. Like, these people did not get together and write their stories at a writing workshop. The tale of the hat that is self-aware enough that it knew it was brand new. And when it was brand new, it got worn to dances and Sunday and funeral, wedding, special event. And then at some point, either because the work hat fell apart or who knows why, the special hat becomes the work hat. And that's where the adventure begins, because, one hat fell off the head and got caught in some bushes, and the cowboy, and he was a cowboy, not a cattleman. The difference between the two is a cattleman owns cattle, but not land. The cowboy does not own cattle. He works other people's cattle. So this guy's a cowboy and loses his hat in the bushes, and he rides off because he's herding cattle going up goodness knows which pass or mesa or wherever it is that he was. And the hat's like, yeah, but I know he'll come back. Oh, he came back. He came back for me. Another hat, there was I think it was a dead horse, and the cowboy was riding the horse over, his horse, to go see if it was a mountain lion or a bear that had killed the horse that was lying on the ground. And the cowboy bends over, and the hat falls down into bear crap. That's a quote. And the cowboy got down, picked up that hat. Now, this is all, the hat's telling us this, right? And he got down and he picked me up And he brushed me off and he put me right up back on his head and he took me home with him. And then that hat gets replaced. A new fancy hat moves in, and then the work hat gets replaced as the new fancy hat becomes the new work hat. And the next thing you know, they end up hanging from the ceiling in Solano's. But these hats have their own life. And we had done an interview on one of the local radio stations down in Raton, and the DJ had shared, we did a couple interviews with them, but in our first one, he was talking about how he had a hat that he's wearing, his dad wore, and his great grandfather wore it when it was brand new. This is a 3-generation hat. And he took this hat into Solano's to have it repaired. And so when we were interviewing, I was like, before we go any further, I want to know about that hat. Like, you're the only person that I know that is wearing a 3-generation hat. And this is after reading a bunch of cowboy hat stories. And here we have somebody walking amongst us who's wearing a hat that his grandfather wore. And it clearly means a lot to him to be wearing it. You would never know that story just walking down the street. And you have no idea that that's the story that guy's carrying around on his head and how meaningful it is. And you're both smiling right now.
Yeah. I mean,
right?
I'm totally engrossed. It actually makes me want to cry because it overwhelms. I'm overwhelmed with emotion thinking about, I mean, what I've seen and you telling me these stories. Yeah. I mean, that's just magical to me.
Yeah,
I don't know how other people feel, but yeah.
Well, I got to tell you, the thing that made that night, her parents are in their 90s, and it was no small feat to get them out of the house. And they came up from Raton to the opening of BRIM. And it was the moment of truth to see 3 generations of that family coming from their humble store down in Raton, where scores of famous people have gone through there. And Todd, something that you said, we took these hats and we moved them from one environment to another and presented them in such a way that people are experiencing them as art. And I think the thing that puts meat on that bone, and it is the art of their lives. The way in which, they made beef or corn or everything. Like, their art is agriculture and everything that goes with it. And what is it that makes it art if it isn't care? It's nurtured. It's meaningful. So, to see, these people, the Solanos, I mean, their son who started this hat thing, his hat was in this show. So in a way, it's a tribute to him. It's a tribute to their family. And it's a tribute to all of the people whose hats, we got to display. But it's also a tribute to the relationship that exists between all of those people in that small community.
Yeah.
Why
they're
not
all
share
connected,
that?
right?
Yeah, why not share that?
Yeah. This is an amazing story because here's the interesting connection for me. I have my great grandfather's cowboy hat hanging up in my dad's bedroom, my grandfather's cat hat in the closet in my dad's hat. So, and to hear these stories and these generations of these hats. And I can remember when I was a kid, my uncle's hat, he had the work hat and it was all bent and stained. And I love that hat. And my biggest regret is not asking him for it, because it had so much character because it had seen so much work and been rained on and sweat on. And yeah, so love those stories. Thank you for sharing that, man. I wish I would have seen that. Todd told me you needed to come down, but it's amazing stories. I love
the same thing. Tractors, same thing.
Yeah.
Some of those tractors look just as bad as some of those hats.
Yeah.
None of them are pretty, but they're all beautiful.
Yep.
you know, and you
And
can
it's
see,
amazing the character those tractors had back then.
I mean,
Amazing.
they're marvels of industrial design, marvels. Our neighbor has, what year is that? 46, 1946 Farmall. Starts right up. I
Yep.
mean, still uses it. I mean, he's new. Like, he's new in the ag business. He's got 6 cows. He's brand new to this. And he still has a tractor story. And he still has a story about what it is that he's doing. And he's still, like, I've talked to some of these folks that are multi-generational farmers or ranchers, and they can tell you, oh, we used to do this by horse, and all the way up to, I've got hundreds of acres in 12 different locations, and I do it all myself because of technology. Because one of the questions is, why is this farm or ranch still around and that one not? Because we're looking for some positive, ag is under some pressure.
Yeah.
In part due to an aging population, and younger people don't want to pick it up, and it's really hard, and it doesn't pay the way that it used to. And so there's a whole story. I mean, that's why Bob was there, was to explore. I don't know about the demise. That's sort of a pre-obituary, but the transformation that agriculture is undergoing and what that looks like and the impacts that has. And what are the people who are still at it doing differently that makes them successful, particularly if we can find things that we can replicate? Because they're all basically dealing with many of the same conditions. If anybody's succeeding, what are they doing? Can we replicate it? Is that something we can learn how to do? And if so, what implications does that have for the future of ag in southern Colorado, northern New Mexico? I mean, one of the conversations that we're putting together right now is on regenerative ag and desertification. What does this have to do with Smithsonian? Absolutely nothing.
Right.
But it has everything to do with ag and this community. And it's a conversation that isn't being had sufficiently that is worth having. The same with, like, we're having another panel discussion on the future of media. We've got the paper in Huerfano County, definitely feeling some pressures. The paper down in Los Animas, definitely feeling some pressures. What's the future of media? Yeah. Because, one of the domains of livability that lifelong Colorado is built on is communication. And so we need to have what might seem like difficult conversations about the ways in which information is shared in small, rural, and frontier communities that are experiencing similar like pressures locally, but also feeling similar pressures globally or externally, let's say. And what do? I mean, they've all already changed the size of their periodicals because a print house shut down in Pueblo. That sent everybody running. And they're changing their publication cycles. We went from every day to every 3 days to once a week. Do you see a trend line here? Yeah. Like, what's next? Zero.
Yeah.
And then how do we get information? Like, how do the older people who aren't on social media get information about what's going on in the community? Meals on Wheels, health stuff, COVID information, opportunities to stem the tide of social isolation because they're at home by themselves for more than 6 hours during the waking day. That's social isolation, 6 hours. My dad and his husband live in the same house, and my dad is by himself 6 hours a day. It's everywhere. Yeah. And it has real impact, real costs. And this is part of that gap between youngers and olders. And I use youngers and olders on purpose because we're all younger and older than everybody. We're all younger and older than somebody, right? there's no way that all three of us are exactly the same age, right? So one of us is likely in the middle, which means you're younger and older than both of us in one way or another.
Right.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
So it's everybody and it's everywhere. And it's a paradigm shift. It's the iceberg has flipped. And, it's one of those simmering I mean, nobody wants to talk about getting older.
Yeah,
right.
that's a taboo subject, right?
Certainly in a positive light. I mean, more and more these last couple of years, we've seen a real sea change. Well, I don't know about sea, at least in my world, because I'm paying attention to this stuff. It feels like there's more and more happening. And I think that the casual observer would probably, if they thought about it, would probably say that they too are noticing more conversations taking place about age. But I think it's happening everywhere. We don't want to talk about it. Ageism is the only time that we're discriminating against our future self. We don't want to talk about it. We don't want to address it. And eventually we're going to be sitting in the same seats that we don't want to talk about today. Like there's no getting around it, unless you bow out early. So is it self-serving and selfish to lend ourselves to the challenges and opportunities that exist within just called the aging space? Yeah. Yeah. It's both self-serving and serving others. It's both. So why not? And it's never going away. You want to talk about an evergreen industry? Aging and knitting are the two evergreen industries that we're a part of, and neither one of them are ever going away. And there's all kinds of fun you can have with both. And you can have a lot of fun combining them too.
Tenet wants to acknowledge our media sponsor, New Magazine. That's NUE. You can follow both the national and the Denver edition of New Magazine on Instagram. The national edition can be found at new_magazine, and the Denver edition at new_Denver_magazine. And I want to share with you something very exciting. Check out the newly launched New Denver Gallery Guide. Look for the signage that says New Denver Gallery Guide that has a QR code. Scan it with your phone, and you have instant access to a comprehensive digital guide to Denver's finest galleries and exhibitions. Find this QR code in your favorite gallery, hotel, or coffee shop as you visit and explore Denver. Thanks for listening.
My name is Ken Chapin, and you are listening to the one and only Tenet Podcast.
To give people context of Trinidad, Colorado, talk about how large of a population Trinidad has and the surrounding area. Do you know those figures off the top of your head?
Yeah, it's the city itself, I think, is between 9 and 11,000. I think the county's about 20, which is maybe twice as much as Huerfano County, just to the north. And it's, historically, it's been ag and extractive industries. There's a lot of ranching, a lot of farming, and then there was a lot of coal. And the last coal plant closed, I don't know, 6 months ago. And we want to talk about job loss. This is not uncommon in these kinds of communities. It's the same story with a different twist all across the country. Bob's work points that out. He's talking about basically the exact same thing happening in Appalachia. So I think maybe the three of us had talked about this, but whatever's happening in Trinidad is also happening somewhere else. It just looks a little different. We may sound a little different, might be growing something different, but the same thing's happening all over the place. And it's not, there's no quick fix, and who knows if it'll ever turn around. But how do we manage these deviations?
And you said something, and I'm going to paraphrase you. You said something very interesting, and I could totally relate to it, in putting together these exhibitions, what you're trying to facilitate is not how dissimilar we are, but how similar we actually are. And that's the attitude I take with the project I'm involved with, the Corn Mother project. I'm interested in those little bit of in those differences, but what I'm really interested in is, how we're connected, the thread that runs through all of us, right? How we are the same. And I think in a world that seems like a lot of times it's spinning out of control, if we just stop and take a moment and really think about, the people, or not only around us, but the other people that we interact with, we're all the same. We all have the same internal organs. We all have blood. We bleed. We have the same needs. We need food and shelter. We want to be loved. We want to give love. I think that's, a typical thing for most people. And I'm just curious, what makes people tick, right? And that's one of these things that all these exhibitions make people realize just how similar we are, no matter what your background is, right?
Yeah. Well, so let's say the thread of similarity between all the Corn Mothers. How would you describe that thread of similarity with those 60 women? What stands out for you that is common amongst them?
That they're nurturers, that they care about their community and the world, at large, that they tend to be selfless, people that would give the, shirt off the back to a stranger. They're generous people, and their wealth of knowledge of things that I might not particularly know about, and they're willing to share that knowledge,
And you want more of that in the world?
Yeah. I was talking with Christine Loudon,
Mayor of Branson. Yep.
And she was asking me about the Corn Mother project, and I was kind of laying it out, how it all came about and what it's all about. And as we were finishing up, as we were leaving the Mitchell, she said something to the fact that, if people would just figure out that women are the ones that run the world, it would be a lot better place. And I'm like, you know what? I totally subscribe to that philosophy. I'm on that train.
True and partial.
Yeah.
Right? It's both true and partial. What we really want. So here's how I interpret that statement. What we really want is the best from everybody.
Yeah.
We want the best from women. We want the best from men, and we want the best of everyone in between, or on either side, wherever that lands. So how do we get more of that? By
doing the work that you're doing.
We feed it. Yeah, we feed it.
We're going to feed that fire so everybody gets to warm their hands around it. Everybody feels good. And then they go out and they want to spread that warmth to other people, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a cultural story within, you could, whether it's either native or indigenous populations, right? I'm never sure who I should be using which term with, but both seem to be valid. That, grandfather, there's, this white wolf, and there's this good wolf or bad wolf. Like, which one's going to win? And a grandfather says, the one that you feed. So we're consciously choosing to feed the things that we want more of. Like, we want more love as a verb. Your Corn Mothers exhibit, from my perspective, is an act of love. Good Night Moon, act of love. Companion exhibits, act of love. I can't speak for the Smithsonian, but these companion exhibits are an act of love and appreciation and celebration, because we want to feed that, because that feels good and we want more of it. And we have a choice. We could either try to get rid of the thing we don't want, or try to make more of the thing that we want. which sounds like more fun to you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to be
Right?
part of something that
Yeah.
you want. Do you want to see it thrive?
Yeah.
You want positivity.
Yeah. Let's go have fun feeding the wolf and get more of what we want. Because whatever the differences that we might be able to identify between ourselves and others, as you said, there are things that are similar that we want: food, clothing, shelter, love, nurturing, companionship, a sense of purpose, a sense of accomplishment, challenges in our life that stretches just to our limit, but are where we can achieve. We want that. Everybody wants that, whether they articulate it or share it or not. We want that. Everybody wants more of the good stuff. So whatever it is that they have going on, being against, we've got neighbors that if you put us in a lineup, you would never go, oh, those guys are friends for sure. There are many things that we do not see eye to eye on. My neighbor dug a trench in the road. I like having bumps to divert water. Right? We see that differently, but we both want to preserve the road. I just don't like the fact that he dug the trench above his driveway, so he doesn't have to go through it. Right?
Oh.
So on December 9th, the Smithsonian Crossroads Change in Rural America opens up. And at 10 o'clock, Tractor Trek, which is that large-scale photography exhibit that I mentioned, opens. We have Steam, the rail exhibit that opens. And at the exact same time, we have a portrait exhibit that a local photographer by the name of Daryl O, went out into the community over the past few months and took portraits of people and took portraits of their hands, because there are people that work. And that show's called Grow, Raise, Make. Emily and Daryl and myself, the three of us hung that show today. And that's 30 portraits hanging from the ceiling in this 20,000 square, same place that Moon was. 20,000 square foot old Studebaker garage, Smithsonian in the middle. These 3 foot by 6 foot portraits hanging from the ceiling along two sides. We'll have a couple of tractors in there. And then we've got 3 or 4 little micro exhibits that were based off of the Blue Sage is a arts group down in Pagosa. Pagosa, I think. And they partnered with the Playback Theater group out of CU Boulder. So I interviewed, and Emily videoed and edited the videos of these interviews, and we've shared that with each of those videos has an artist and a writer that accompany it. We're creating little micro exhibits for each of those groups of people. And we'll have a live, the Playback Theater people will be doing a live sort of response improvisational piece. That's from 5 to 7. Every year there's been a tradition between with one of the local newspapers, and that they do a Kringle giveaway. So at 2 o'clock and 7 o'clock, we're doing these drawings where we've gotten donations. We're going to be Buddy the Elf is going to be giving away these prizes, gift cards, and things donated from the community. So that is going to be fun. Portraits with Santa, of course, hot chocolate and, holiday cookies. And it's from 10 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. Come for one reason, find a couple other to stay. And then the next day we're going to sleep in, and then Monday we start with field trips. So, yeah.
And then later in the month, you have some film screening or another film screening. So talk a little bit about that, the films that you've been screening.
Yeah. So there's a film that's floating around right now called The 5 States of Colorado, and it looks at 5 distinct regions. So start in Denver Metro, north, south, east, west, western slope, southern, up north, and out on the eastern plains. And the film itself explores, it's about an hour and a half long, but it spends time exploring each of these regions individually, talking about some of the history, some of what's changed, how industries changed, how populations have changed, that basically change in these regions, and it explores a little bit about what makes them distinct and the ways in which we might be similar. And so it's an interesting lens to look at any community that finds itself in one of those 5 regions, because it's easy to identify. I mean, Trinidad's actually named in this film, so that makes it really easy to identify with what they're saying when they call you by name. But if you are a community, that you will probably have an easier time identifying with the community, that the region that you're in, than the ones that you're not. And then you get to look at the ones that you're not in and go, how are we different or similar? And it really, the idea is to spark a conversation about who we are, how we became this, how we're similar and how we're different. And then after that, we'll have some group discussion. One of the screenings, we started talking about a really common tension. Well, I was going to say in small towns, but I think common everywhere right now, which is the people who, have called this home for a sufficient amount of time in their minds or for generations, and the people who are new, and the tension that exists between those two groups. And it is alive and well. And how, typically what happens in that conversation, which is not surprising, is, we get into to an either or. And of course, if you've been here forever and you don't like what's happening, the change that's happening around you, then it's the new people's fault. And in reality, if no new people ever moved to small towns, those small towns would cease to exist. So should we just not have new people move in, thinking that everything will stay the way that it is? Or is this another opportunity to get the best of what people who have called this home for generations have to contribute, whether it's history, a knowing of the land, wisdom, family, the institutional knowledge, the cultural knowledge that can only come through story passed down from generation to generation. And what is it that the people who are moving to these small towns have to offer that is a benefit to the community, and how do we get the best of both of those groups? And to have that conversation come as a result of watching this film was very welcome. The fact that we could facilitate a dialogue with people who find themselves or identify themselves in each of those groups. We only got to talk for, half an hour, 45 minutes. So this is going to have to be sustained conversation over time. It's not going to happen in 30 minutes. And how do we, how can both of us, one of the themes that's shown up, throughout this project is the idea of respect. For as long as we've been down here for 3 years, we have never, to my knowledge, encountered any get out of here new person vibe from anybody. That doesn't surprise me because, we're conscious of the fact that we're in the world and that there are all kinds of people in the world with us and that we're new. And we're both really curious. We're genuinely curious. I mean, we wouldn't be doing the Smithsonian the way that we are and doing all of this above, over the top, next level work if we weren't curious about the stories that exist in this community. And if you lead with appreciation and curiosity, what's not to like? Hi, what's your name? Tell me about yourself. Go away. That doesn't ever happen. We're genuinely interested in hearing, we're a part of this community. We're not going to turn ourselves into somebody that we're not. So we want to find a way to be in this community in a way that we get to give the best of ourselves in a way that the community can appreciate, respect and curiosity. and beauty and fun and whimsy and joy and more of all the good stuff. Feed it at every turn, just like you guys do.
Yeah.
I mean, you do.
That's the whole reason why we have this podcast, is because we're curious.
Yeah,
for sure.
And you want more of the good.
Yeah. And we, I don't know if we ever really talk ill or talk about, there's things that we talk about that are troubling, but we come about it from curiosity and love always, I believe.
That's my experience. I mean, I've not listened to all 156.
173 episodes.
73. So clearly I'm right. I haven't listened to them all, but I've never heard you gripe. And I think there's room for that. I don't think, they say that complaint is the language of the victim. And the victim generally, at least generally, doesn't want to take responsibility for its own experience. So it complains about it, right? And that's fair. I've done that. We all do it.
Well, we're all victims. It's what we do with it, and it's fine to wallow in your victimhood as long as you don't live in it.
Yeah.
Endlessly.
As long as it's useful.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, complaining is bad, true and partial.
Yeah.
Right. Wallowing in difficulty is bad, both true and partial. The question is, at least for me, at what point does it go from being useful to not useful?
Right.
Energetically, relationally, professionally, like whatever metric you want to use. When's it useful? Sometimes I have friends or, somebody that I might be, in a coaching like conversation with, and they'll, start out with complaint. And I just ask them, like, what do you want from me? And that's an invitation for them to like stop and get present and at like, what is it that I actually want? Because they're not fully aware generally that they're just complaining. And we could do that for hours.
Oh, yeah.
And get absolutely nowhere. But the simple question of, what do you want from me? Right. And, sometimes that's followed up with, do you just need to vent, or is there something that I can actually do? And if sometimes it'll be like, I just need to vent. Fine. Like, you're consciously making that choice. Run with it.
Right.
Right. Because you can consciously be done with that as well.
Yeah. So, and I can be a huge complainer, but sometimes it takes, because eventually there'll be the moment that I realize all you're doing is complaining. Like, get over it. Yeah. Move on.
Yeah. That's when you've heard yourself.
Yep.
Yeah. You've heard enough of you.
Right.
All right. That ever happened to you, Todd? You ever get to the point where I feel like I've heard enough of me already?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Every day.
Yeah. Totally fine.
Right.
You're aware
it
of
is. It's legit.
Yeah.
It's a legit
You got to
feeling.
get the hell out of your own way sometimes.
Right.
And sometimes you have to go to that place to make yourself realize like, oh shit, I'm being a real dickhead, or I'm just
so sick of me. I'm sick
of myself. I got to like, all right, what do I got to change? What do I got to do to make this different?
Yeah.
I came to that realization like a couple of weeks ago at work. It was a tough week, and I was complaining. And I just went to my coworker and I says, good God, I'm just a big ass complainer.
Uh-huh.
I had to
True
get out
and
of
partial.
This. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to harp
exactly
on that.
Right. Yeah.
But Todd, you said something. You said, you revealed the ninja move secret, maybe without even knowing it. You said, what am I going to do about it? And we could have a whole other conversation about this particular dynamic, which I'm a huge fan of. But, the victim is largely unconscious behavior, largely. And the conscious expression of that is the creator. And so the question is, like, here are my circumstances. Here's my experience. I'm going to complain about this. Hopefully somebody will fix it. Or I'm going to complain about this. Maybe I'll get sick of hearing myself. When one of those things happens, the question is, what am I going to do? What am I going to do about this situation? What am I going to do about this circumstance, this job, this relationship, this art project, this podcast? What am I going to do? And that's, I think, is one of the beautiful things about being a human being, is being able to access the creator that exists in each of us. And by creator, I mean the capacity to do.
Yeah.
You know, not a deity, you know, but the capacity to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that, you know, people always want to like help other people, which I appreciate, but a lot of times they want to help, they want to change people. And I don't think you can't change anybody, right? Change comes from within. You know, you're not going to save anybody. You can save yourself, but that's having that dialogue like, all right, what am I going to do to fix this? You know, nobody's going to come knocking on my door and say, hey, Todd Pearson, here's your life. This is going to be fantastic.
There are some people who actually will do that. There's a trio that dances together here. And it's the basis of every Disney movie. Well, you know, it's either the hero's journey, right? Thank you, Joseph Campbell, or it's the bully or the persecutor, the victim or the damsel in distress, or the hero rescuer, right? And you know, that little trifecta, we're all of those things. And you'll notice that, let's say there's somebody that needs, you know, that's a victim, you know, or embodies that way of being a lot, that when a rescuer arrives and, you know, come to save the day, as soon as the bully or the persecutor or whatever the thing is sufficiently distanced from the person, oftentimes the victim actually turns on their own hero and becomes the bully. And it is this vicious cycle, and it's not cyclical. It's this exchange. And what it is, it's an exchange of power. Because although the language is different, the message is the same. When a hero, the thing that a bully is saying to, let's say, the wimp or a weak person or the victim in this case, is that you're absolutely powerless. Like, there's nothing you can do against me. And that's why the hero is necessary. And because the hero can do something about it. But the subtle message that the hero is conveying to the victim is, your power is insufficient without me. And as soon as the "no, your power is useless" thing is gone, the next worst thing is being told that your power is insufficient and I'm only here because of you. Like, that doesn't sit well. And so we turn on that person. Those are unconscious behaviors, and it's a dynamic that's at play in each of us, between each of us and within each of us. There's a conscious expression of those same, let's call them, roles. The victim goes to creator. The rescuer goes to coach. And the bully goes to challenger. And one way that this showed up in, let's say, in my family, my son, not a big fan of school or homework, lost his computer privileges at his mom's house. We were divorced at this time. We still are, but we were divorced. And he called me up going, "Hey, Dad, Mom took my computer. Can you talk to her?" Right? My son's the victim. He's putting his mom in the role of the persecutor or the bully, and he's inviting me to be his hero rescuer. Well, I've read this book, right? He hasn't read this book yet. And what he's doing unknowingly is inviting me to reinforce this notion that he has that he's powerless against his mom. And if I have a propensity for rescuing, which we all do, it's part of the hero's journey. I'll go, da, 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 dad to save the day. Gosh, Aaron, what the hell? He can't do his homework? I would just adopt his arguments and ferry them along with more authority. But since I'd read the book, I was like, well, what have you done about this? What do you mean? Well, have you talked to your mom about this? Like, what have you done about this? Now, I just slipped right there, right? There's subtle invitations for me to tell him what he should do. That's me rescuing him. I need to say, like, what have you done about this? And then shut my mouth, which is hard because he's going to be in a difficult place going, not know the answer. He doesn't even know what he wants for dinner other than I don't know, which we're usually out of, right? So there are all these subtle attempts and invitations for me to step in and rescue him, which just reinforces that powerless narrative, but it also gets his mom and I to be at odds. So she is probably looking at me as though I'm the bully because I'm stepping in to rescue him, and he feels powerless, and as a result isn't strengthening the relationship with his mother to where he can have a real honest conversation and create an alternative reality for himself by not falling into this unconscious behavior. We all do it. We do. Yeah. I do this 100 times a day. I go through this cycle knowingly. And I'm in all of those things. I mean, another practice with Emily, like she's read the book. I should plug it. It is the book that I have given away to more people and recommended to more people than any other single book ever. And it is a one-day read. And it is so simple. It's called The Power of Ted by David Emerald. And it's just, Ted is the empowerment dynamic. It's probably $9 on thrift books, probably even less, 14 if you buy it new off of his website. And it does such a phenomenal job of illustrating this unconscious and conscious expression of who we naturally are, and does it in such a way that you can use it. It's so usable. It's ridiculous. And I have had people who I didn't think would read it come back to me and go, oh my God, this book has changed my life. And then we have a conversation and they're not slipping into unconscious behavior within 5 minutes. You're like, holy shit. Like, wow. Like, they actually read it and it's actually making a difference. And there's other people like, I'm not a victim. That doesn't apply to me. I'm like, all right, off the train, I guess. You're always welcome back on. I mean, I didn't write this book. I didn't come up with this thing. I just read it. I'm like,
you're not getting kickback on this?
No. I live a kickback-free existence.
Man.
Yeah. Just more art,
What do you love about the community of Trinidad? You've been there for 3 years and you've obviously gone all in.
Mm-hmm.
And in turn, the community has come back and said, hey, we love having you here. We want you here. And here's some things that we think that you can facilitate. What do you love about Trinidad? What do you love about living there?
So we live in Huerfano, outside of Walsenburg, like around the sticks. We work in Trinidad. We tried to start this work in Walsenburg, and for whatever reason, it didn't take. And so we found ourselves in Trinidad, which I think makes a lot of sense in some ways, because if you look, Trinidad has an artistic legacy that Walsenburg doesn't. Now, if you go further north and further west in Huerfano County, where Walsenburg is, you get up into the Libres and the artist communes. Drop City was down in Trinidad. And so you look at the art cartopia and the art that goes on and the history of the art that has taken place down in southern Colorado, particularly Trinidad, that energetically, I think it's just suitable for the kinds of people that we are. And I think we gravitate towards, the kinds of people who both appreciate us and appreciate the kinds of things that we appreciate. So that's natural. And there are enough of those people there to make it so we can't walk down the street any given day that we can see somebody that we know, or, we used to be known as the frog people because of frog. Then we were known as the Goodnight Moon people. And now we're known as Goodnight Moon people and some more Smithsonian stuff. But it's not really of us, We're not making any of the art. I mean, we're making the art of the whole thing. But finding people who share our interests and appreciate the contributions that feel best for us to make is a wonderful fit. It's beautiful. We've got 2 state parks. I mean, right across the highway from each other. Far enough away from the metro area that, from our house to the highway, we might see 3 or 4 cars, maybe. So I appreciate that for sure. The air is clean. The skies are blue. The skies are dark at night. You can see the Milky Way every night of the year, as long as there's not clouds. There are very few people. I mean, we go to these parks. One of the parks that we go to up in Huerfano County is the first state park in Colorado. Started in 1967, and last year, we take Henry there and hike trails with him off leash. And last year we were doing a little bit of math, and we estimated that in the entire year we saw 20 people on that trail. So I love that. It's kind of like you get your own park. I wish the food scene were better, but we have people who grow, raise, and make all kinds of stuff down here. So, I think the people, the vibe, and the fact that we're doing it together. But, as it came up earlier in conversation, none of this would be fun if I were doing it alone. I mean, I probably wouldn't do any of this if we weren't doing this together. So I think that's what keeps it going. And I think we're both better together. Well, I know I am, and I'd like to think that Emily is better. She probably would have been better either way. I clearly needed her in my life to get to the better that I'm at right now. So I'm glad that's working out for me. And I think it works out for everybody, right? Like better versions of all of us is better for all of us.
Right.
That's it, man.
So something universal out of that.
I love that.
Yeah.
I like how you caught yourself there.
Yeah. Happens a lot. And I'm all right with it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm fine. I'd rather catch myself than somebody else have to do it.
Heck yeah. I can appreciate it. I really can.
Yeah.
Giving credit where credit's due.
Yeah.
So these exhibits, everything will be open that you are producing. It all opens this weekend, and it runs for how long?
Well, the Smithsonian proper runs through January 13th. Corn Mothers runs through May, and all of the other exhibits are mostly all the way through January, with a couple of venue fluctuations here and there. Like BRIM will likely only be at A.R. Mitchell for a month because we're occupying a good amount of floor space, which they're usually two-dimensional wall people. And so we're right smack in the middle of one of the parts of the museum that people rent for events. So we'll probably take, and this is not fully planned out yet, but we'll probably take that. We'll take BRIM and we'll move it out of the Mitchell and probably down to Space to Create when Smithsonian leaves. We'll likely bring BRIM down there, which will expose it to, maybe more people walk in because there's more reasons to go to Space to Create, more in terms of a number of different reasons why people go to that building versus the Mitch. So I think that we'll probably, just by moving it, we'll have an opportunity to share it with people who wouldn't see it. And then some of the probably Tractor Trek will likely come down and make room for an exhibition that that I'm putting together in collaboration with the state parks and Army Corps of Engineers and the watershed group down here, where we're exploring more of an environmental narrative, sort of history of the river and some seismic events that have taken place along that river over time that have had a big or a lasting impact on the community or the river itself. Like one of the things that happened in July of 1965 is there was a flood on the Purgatory River, and a train derailed and went into the river. Which, when I saw that old news clipping, I thought, "Holy shit!" Like that seems like a seismic event to me. And just sort of following the trail, I ended up having a conversation with the guy. He's in his 80s now, and we're going to make this story available to people in an exhibit. But I had a conversation with a guy who was the brakeman on that train. And when I first got on the phone with him, he's like, "Yeah, there's really not much to say," which is always the precursor to having something to say. Sort of a interesting sort of psychological preface to giving oneself permission to say something. So I helped with the permission, and he told me a bunch of stuff, but he also told me that the point at which he jumped off of that train, because there was train, river, power line, and he didn't want to be there when the three of them met, that the guys were jumping off of the train. And he said, "I jumped off the train and I hit the ground and I landed on my back and turned over and looked up just in time to see the wheels of that train fly overhead." And I'm like, "What do you mean you don't have anything to say?" Like,
Man,
what? So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with that little chunk of, story. But I got to tell you, the vision, the image of a train flying over my head is seared into the inside of my eyelids. I mean, I don't know anybody else who's ever had that experience before. And there's a couple other people that are still around who helped get that train out of the river. So I'm going to talk to them too. Because I imagine that they probably have nothing to say until they do also. And I can't wait. Like now, we've talked to somebody who, I don't want to say he had anything to do with it going into the river, but he was the brakeman, and then somebody that got it out. And now I've met a woman who has 100 years of worth of photographs in her house that her grandfather took of that train going into the river. And I don't think those photographs have ever been seen by the public. So who knows what's going to come from that. Right. But yeah, we've got exhibitions running. The majority of them open on the 9th. will run anywhere from a month to 5 months, most of them probably 2, some of them getting replaced by others. And then our whole Smithsonian endeavor wraps up on January 24th with an opportunity fair, which, is an offshoot of talking to one of the CEOs of one of the rail companies about what kind of jobs railroads are. And can you raise a family on that? And have you ever been in a job fair in Trinidad? Which the answer was no. Amtrak's never been here. BNSF has never been to a job fair here. And these are really good paying jobs that you can raise a family on, which we need more of. Inside, I'm going to keep going back to this because I want people to copy it. But lifelong Colorado, one of the domains of livability is work. And so the future of work is another panel discussion that I'm working on that brings organizations that are engaged either in the development of broadband in the rural areas or entrepreneurship in rural areas to come down to Southern Colorado and have a conversation about the future of work. And it's sort of a rails to remote kind of opportunity fair. So there'll be jobs, apprenticeships, internships, scholarships, anything that we can put together for people probably 10th grade until, people are old enough and don't want to work anymore. We want to close the gap between the people and the opportunities that they seek in order to improve their lives economically. And so that's how we'll wrap up the Smithsonian. Then I think we're out of town for a month.
Man, fantastic. I'm so excited with all the things that I witnessed while I was down there, the things that we talked about tonight, things that I've seen you post on social media. There's a lot to take in. Mm-hmm. If somebody wants to make the trek down, if they don't live in the area, what's the best place to go to find this information?
Well, you can go to the Trinidad Creative District on Facebook, or you can go to, you just Google Trinidad Creative District and it'll get you to their website. Trinidad is fluent in Facebook. That's sort of the online language that everybody speaks. So we invest heavily in that platform. So you can find every event that we have has its own event on Facebook. Like everything is everywhere. We put this into newspapers, now podcasts, radio interviews, FaceTime live thing. I've got one of those on Wednesday. I mean, if anybody says I didn't hear about this, then I just will assume that they're the 1% of people who I didn't quite catch. But we're doing everything we can. It's a Herculean lift to get the word out, and we're doing everything we can. And I appreciate the help that you guys are offering right here today. Plus, I just like talking to you guys.
Yeah, it's fun.
I mean, I know that we could have had this conversation without recording it at all, and it would have been just as rich, if not richer. So I like that about us.
Yeah, I do too. Eli DeBono called you the cultural ambassador of Trinidad.
Another one of those things that's hard to take in. I mean, that gets me to my upper limit of goodness, fast. But I mean, Eli, I love that dude. I mean, that radio station, is a media partner for Smithsonian. And I mean, you were on there. You see how much funny. I mean, he's a great guy.
He is.
And he's got a big heart, and he's just incredibly sweet. He's really generous. He's super kind. Yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the kind of thing that if anybody's going to call you that, it had better be somebody else. You never want to you don't ever want to refer to yourself as a shaman. Probably shouldn't refer to yourself as a guru. And I don't think that you'll ever hear me say that I'm what Eli called me. But I appreciate his kind words. He always has kind words. He always has kind words. So, because of him, maybe I'm probably getting a little bit better at taking in the nice things that, people might have to say about either who I am, or it's mostly about what I'm doing. Most people are appreciative of what it is that I'm doing, because most people don't really know me. They just know what I do because that's what they experience, and that's fine. Who wants everybody to know them that well?
Right.
But yeah, he's been super. Yeah, he's great. I know I'm repeating myself, but one of the things that I really like about him is every time I go on his show or beforehand, when it's just the two of us, we can easily sit in that studio for half an hour before and after the show. And just imagine the things that we talk about in those 2 blocks of time when you listen to what it is that we talk about for the 20 or 25 minutes that we're on the air. And he just digs Emily. He says hi to her on the air. He asks about her. He's really stricken by her in a really good way. And I always feel good about that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate all the work you're doing down there. I've become a huge fan of Trinidad because of the people I've met down there. It's a fantastic community, so welcoming, so much going on. And I feel honored that we're friends, and I've gotten to know you a little bit, and Emily and all the other cast of characters that, Cody Keel and Allison Shoemaker and,
It's
Eli.
a list.
It's a list. Every
Yeah.
time I go down there, I feel like I'm making new friends, and it's a great community. So anytime that I can champion Trinidad, Colorado in any way, shape, or form, I will. I tell people all the time, if you don't go down there and experience it, you're missing out. So,
well, I'm looking forward. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we've been talking about Trinidad almost since the beginning of the podcast too. It came up early, and keeps coming up, and I'm looking forward to I'm going to Arizona at the end of this month and hoping to stop in Trinidad on my way back to South Dakota. So I'm glad all those things are still going on, because I'm hoping I can hit it on a day that I can come and see some of that. So thank you for all your hard work. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. And you've got the tour. Shoot me a message. Let me know when you're going to swing through.
I will do that.
And if there's anything I can do to make that a easier yes for you, let me know.
All right. I will definitely keep that in mind, Ken.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, well, guys, it's been great. I know we may have chatted for a little longer than we had anticipated, but
it's all good.
It's worth every minute.
It's all about. Yep.
That's right.
Yep. I will see you again sometime in the next month, I'm sure. But in the interim, I will make sure that I have all the pertinent information in this week's episode notes, so people that are listening can find out all the different events and exhibitions. Please send me anything that you have, and I'll pay attention to I usually see your stuff on Facebook or Instagram, but I'll make sure that we get all that information out on our social media as well.
Cool. Thanks.
All right. Well, to wrap up this week, it's nice to hang out with you guys. Wes, once again, back in the
saddle,
groove.
Baby.
And Ken, nice to have you on again.
Thanks, guys.
For the Tenet podcast, I'm Todd Pearson.
And I'm Wes Brown.
Have a great week.